Nobody likes to get that phone call like the one I got last night. Hey, I'm in the hospital parking lot. My phone is dead and I need help. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and yes, I got that call last night while sitting at dinner with my daughter for her birthday party. My son calls to say I'm at the hospital parking lot and I need help. And so we jump in the car and we drive across town, and we get there to find that, well, he's okay. His phone had died, but his truck is not so much okay. Because like many people in the journey of life, whether it's the way to riches or the way to education or building new relationships, shortcuts, well, they abound. There's shortcuts everywhere. And if you pay somebody just enough money, they'll teach you all these shortcuts. They'll teach you how to get around the process. Here's something you should know from a leadership perspective. Sometimes the process is the point. All those little steps between A and Z, that's called the rest of the alphabet. And you can't just randomly leave them out. You can't just decide that part doesn't belong in your life because, well, it's inconvenient. Yes, there are some things that you can learn from a mentor. There are some things where you can walk through a process like an apprenticeship and learn that, well, doing it that way is probably not going to pay off. In fact, we found that when you do it like this, this, and this, it saves time, saves money, and has a better result. But just skipping steps randomly because they're inconvenient to you, because they cost a little more money than you wanted to spend, those ideas, those shortcuts, they can be deadly. So last night as I roll up on the scene, my son's got his truck up on the jack and the front end is all over the place in pieces. And I said, well, what happened? He said, it just exploded. I said, well, define exploded. And so as we got to looking, it appears that the inner and outer wheel bearings disintegrated in the truck while he was driving it down the road. Not very fast, on the service road, about to get on the highway, but fortunately not on the highway yet. And as we dug into the pieces and parts, and I went and bought the new bearings for him to put on the side of the road at 1 o'clock in the morning. Yes, if my eyes are red, he's the reason, because we were up all night trying to get that done. But we never did actually get one of the nuts off that is absolutely required to be able to put the bearings back in, because the race for the bearing and the nut itself have welded each other to the spindle of the axle. Well, what does all that have to do with leadership, you might ask? Well, the answer is really simple. When he did a brake job not too long ago with new brakes and new pads and new rotors, in order to do that on a four-wheel drive, you have to take the entire hub assembly off of the vehicle. Meaning he took all the screws and all the springs and all the bearings and all the locks and all the gears out of the hub. But when he put it back together, he put it back together with new grease, but old bearings. Now this is a 1989 Bronco. It seems like a minor step, but we're talking about an old truck with a lot of miles on it and a big heavy motor in the front. And going through that process without replacing those bearings put his life at risk, because it could have been on the highway at 60 miles an hour. It could have been with friends and family in the car. It could have been a very big deal when the wheel decided to seize up and fall off the car. He's very blessed that it happened at a slow speed. But see, we have the same problem in leadership, and that is that people want shortcuts. They want to get from here to rich fast. They want to get from here to successful fast. They want to get from I just started yesterday to I want my title tomorrow to I want to run the company the next day. And they don't have the process inside them. They've left out those little parts. Now see, the reality is at this point, if he can't get that nut loose, he's going to be replacing the whole spindle. He already has to replace all the locking gears that go inside the hub. So he's looking at about $250 to $300 worth of parts, even if he does all the labor himself, which would be $400 or $500 if he paid somebody else. So he's done about $1,000 worth of damage. Do you know what the bearings cost that he could have replaced when he had it all apart the first time? $9. $9. So in order to save the $9 on the outer bearing race, he put the whole assembly back together using old parts. He put his life at risk. He put his friends' lives at risk. And he saved $10. Now, the decision to save $10 actually cost him $1,000, but he saved $10. You follow my point? In leadership, if you're just starting out, if you're just learning the ropes, take the time to go through the process. Don't skip the steps. Don't leave out the parts. Don't save a little expense now, realizing how much it's going to cost you later. Because right now it might mean you lose a job, you get fired, you come clean on something that you probably should have known, and you end up replacing a $10 part, or starting over in a new career, or starting over in a new job because you lost that job. But if you do that 5 years from now, you do that 10 years from now, we're talking about Enron. We're talking about major cataclysmic impact, not just on you, but on hundreds, maybe thousands, or even millions of people. Leaders cannot afford to skip steps in the process or leave out little parts along the way. Because that $10 part today, that small decision today, that could be $1,000 worth of damage later on. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.